Presentation of the Telecast Production Group.
Welcome to Profiles of America, the series of programs focused on the challenges of business today. Picture these two scenarios: the CEO as head buffalo leading a herd of obedient employees versus a company of high-flying geese sharing a leadership role, yet maintaining efficient flying formation. These two analogies are drawn by author Jim Belasco in his bestseller, Flight of the Buffalo. Millar Elevator Service Company is one U.S. business striving toward employee empowerment and improved customer service. As part of the Millar story, author Jim Belasco will share his thoughts on these subjects. As the largest dedicated elevator service organization in the U.S., Millar Elevator Service Company knows more than the ups and downs of the people-moving business. The current Millar management team has initiated a striking change in company style and structure, aimed at revolutionizing the industry's approach to customer service. We'll look at the business of customer service, plus share some insights from management expert Jim Belasco. But first, to give us a brief history of vertical transportation, here's correspondent Jackie Bishop.
People and things moving vertically. Hardly a new concept. As a matter of fact, vertical transportation is thousands of years old, dating back to the roping and ramping that helped the ancient Egyptians build the Great Pyramids. As the centuries progressed, so did advancements through Roman and medieval times. But elevatoring took its biggest leap forward during the English Industrial Revolution, when power was substituted for muscle. The introduction of commercial elevators in America came in 1850 when Henry Waterman of New York City developed a steam-operated lift. Yet the real turning point in the evolution of the elevator was in 1853 at the Crystal Palace Exposition in New York. That was the year that Elisha Otis proved to the masses the true safety of elevators, and from that moment on, the landscape of every city in the world was forever changed. It was 1874 when the Schindler Company emerged in Switzerland, initially with water-based elevators. Schindler grew through the years in Europe and then entered the U.S. market through several acquisitions in the 1970s and 1980s. Then late in the 1980s, these acquisitions were organized into two separate organizations, participating in the OEM business and taking advantage of the turbulent service business through Millar. Millar was created in 1990 through the merger of several companies and became the largest elevator service company in the country. As such, today, Millar maintains well over 40,000 elevators and escalators. Millar has over $300 million in sales and has over 2,500 employees nationally.
We were created, actually, by our company, parent company, to be in the market for what is normally called foreign elevators, to maintain foreign elevators, as opposed to OEM elevators. We then took that mission and actually decided that we want to be ultimately in this market the preferred elevator service provider, or what we also refer to as the quality alternative in the market.
From the White House to cruise ships to the homes of the stars, Millar services elevators just about everywhere. And as I'm sure you've assumed, elevator travel today is a far cry from the early models of over a century ago.
Elevators today travel much faster than they ever did before, and the amount of time that people wait for elevators is much less than they used to be. Before, you would see a panel which would look like a closet with a whole bunch of these relays in the closet. A typical elevator might have 100, 150 different relays. Today, all of those are replaced with computers, and you might see 3 or 4 different computer printed circuit boards, but that's it. So all the information coming in is processed very quickly, and you get up-to-date decisions and controls that were never possible before computers were invented.
Throughout the years, as the equipment has become more sophisticated, the vertical transportation industry has become more complex.
Well, over the years, I guess if I look back on what I thought were some major changes, had to do with the change from the original equipment manufacturers dominating the business to a shift to the independent contractors. This kind of happened back during the overbuilding times, I would say late 70s through mid 80s. I started looking at this business as more of a service-oriented business, getting the people involved, not just servicing pieces of equipment, but starting to service people in general. And that went a long way to making people, the owners, the building managers stop and think about whether or not they could make some changes. Normally it was price-driven, but nonetheless there was an opportunity there for them to make the changes.
To out-local the national and to out-national the local, this was the goal of Millar upon setting up their independent service organization. In our next story, we'll look at what prompted Millar to make such a dramatic change from its past. We'll visit several Millar customers, and we'll also hear from management change expert Jim Belasco.
I personally believe there's actually also a tremendous void because of the customer service which elevator companies have traditionally supplied. And I think we try to fill that void. I think usually we were looking at technical competence only, and I actually frankly believe technical competence is maybe the entry requirement, but the battle will ultimately be won on the customer service side.
Three things are forcing this change. The first thing is the nature of our customer is changing. Customers today are more demanding, they are more sophisticated. They expect better, faster than we've ever been able to deliver before. Second critical thing that's driving this change is the fact that we need to absolutely do things quicker. Time compression, faster, faster, faster. And the third thing is the nature of competition is changing. The competitors are getting bigger, faster, better.
James A. Belasco is the author of the best-selling Teaching the Elephant to Dance, Empowering Change in Your Organization. And along with Ralph Stayer has also authored Flight of the Buffalo, Soaring to Excellence, Learning to Let Employees Lead. Jim Belasco is also a professor of management at San Diego State University and an internationally known consultant for many top companies.
Too many organizations for too long have believed they knew what the customer wanted. And in fact, that they knew better what was good for the customer. Talk about a buffalo kind of mentality, right? They knew what was good for the customer better than the customer did. And they were busy telling the customer. That doesn't work today because the customer has lots and lots of options and lots of alternatives.
By implementing some striking changes, Millar has managed to grow its customer portfolio in a declining market. Step number one, make the customer number one in all areas of the business.
Whenever we do anything in this organization, we need to ask ourselves, does it create value to the customer? If it doesn't create value to the customer, we should really not do it. It's not, it doesn't make sense to spend time on internal things which just maybe might be nice for us, satisfy us. We have to make sure it creates value for the customer. That's the whole thing about customer-driven quality.
The only person I know of who puts money on the top line and the bottom line and food on my table is the person who pays my salary, and that's my customer. The only person who generates revenue in any organization, I don't care where it is the customer. And because of that, we have to identify what that customer really wants.
Customer-driven quality is CDQ, and it's Millar's way of focusing its associates to be attentive and responsive to the customer, and through using the tools of the system to solve process improvements.
The Ford Motor Company, the world's second largest automotive corporation. Ford has plants or facilities in 30 countries outside the United States and sells vehicles in more than 200 markets. Internationally, Ford employs over 322,000 people in its plants, laboratories, and offices. And what moves Ford executives to the top of the world headquarters building in Dearborn, Michigan, is Millar serviced elevators.
There are 16 escalators, 11 elevators, and 4 dumbwaiters that service the kitchen. We have a Millar elevator serviceman on duty 5 days a week. And we have very few problems with our elevators.
Ford World headquarters encompasses over 1 million square feet on 12 floors. Built in 1955, this building contains over 1,700 offices. Thousands of times each day, masses of people need to move vertically through this building as quickly and effortlessly as possible. Enter Millar.
I have a figure of 24,000 stops a week for those 4-passenger elevators. Reliability is very important with regard to certain elevators serving executive areas and one of our main freights that's used for maintenance and construction.
My goal is actually to have them never realize their elevator service. For me personally, if a building recognizes their elevator problems, then they have too many of them. And I'd like them to just be able to take their elevators for granted.
Preventive maintenance is key to not having problems. When things are maintained properly, they're not very likely to break down. What I need from a service company is good service at a reasonable cost. Millar Elevator has proven to be reliable, and the people involved in maintaining our equipment have been outstanding.
Heinz Interest Limited Partnership, headquartered in Houston, Texas, manages, leases, and develops real estate. As a national real estate organization, Heinz Interest has created more than 400 commercial and industrial projects in 39 cities across the United States. Since its founding in 1957 by Gerald D. Heinz, the company has grown to employ over 1,200 people and owns more than 48 million square feet of first-class office and retail property. And when it comes to servicing or updating vertical transportation, Heinz turns to Millar.
It's important to us that they have a good public relations image to that tenant, because it's very easy for tenants in a building to point fingers or get upset if the elevator service is not up to quality that everybody would like.
Heinz Interest operates as a regionalized company in order to better serve its clients. One Houston property operated by Heinz and serviced by Millar is the downtown Nations Bank building.
Their history here in this building dates back to day one, from an installation of the equipment in the building and continuing maintenance on the equipment in the building. The size of the Millar organization gives support to the on-site personnel whenever there are major breakdowns. They have the people to do it, and they also carry a substantial inventory on site in Houston.
The Millar goal is, of course, to have customer-driven quality pave a compass course to customer satisfaction.
Well, I would say that it's very important that the customers in the building, that you do have a public relations aspect with them, because they see you every day and they trust you on their elevator service. It's just a goal that would be that your elevators are operating so good that the people could be talking. If they didn't hear the hall entering, then they wouldn't hear the doors open.
We are confident in the expertise of the people that are assigned to this job because of past history. It's been this way, and today we expect that.
Oakwood Health Services Corporation is a regional healthcare network in southeast Michigan. The Oakwood system serves residents over a 500 square mile area and operates 7 hospitals, 30 specialty and medical centers, and a vast number of health services. More than 1,100 physicians of nearly every medical and surgical specialty are affiliated with Oakwood Health Services. Oakwood serves 1 million people in 26 southeastern Michigan communities.
We entered into a contractual relationship with Millar because we realized that they wanted to create a partnership or a long-run relationship. They also have the ability to service all of our properties, which are 6 other hospitals as well as 30 satellite facilities. So they have to have a support staff that can address all of our needs.
Part of our marketing plan in the future to see if more of these group type packages might not be a nice way for customers to ensure that they get